Okay, so now we're ready to jump over to the rasp and the file family to get into some of these tighter areas. And what I'm looking for is, you can see I still got a shelf in here where I'm going to put that head. And what I'm looking for is something a little bit more smoother, transitional, a little bit nice smooth contour in there, nice shelf for the head where I can kind of have a nice smooth transition for that head and neck area. So what we're going to do is if we're going to get into tight, tight areas, we're going to have to get in to a tool family that's got some half round to it, that's got a nice curve to it, and a nice tight curve that allows me to get into these tight areas. And I'm going to go, just so you know, I'm going to talk you through the progression. I'm going to go from something extremely coarse like this. This 16-inch Nicholson is essentially the equivalent of a horseshoe rasp. This will hog the wood off. This is where I'm going to start with. I don't want to leave all those ugly scar marks in there, so after that I'm going to go to something a little bit smoother, like this cabinet rasp, and then ultimately I'm going to probably jump to something even more smooth, like this rat tail round file. So let's get in there with the 16-inch Nicholson. This is a push-pull deal. You can see I've got my glove on again. The purpose of this glove is to hold on to this rasp. It's very difficult with just your bare hands. So the glove helps you and protects your hands from getting cut. So I'm just going to get in here and kind of work this shelf down, this flat area. Kind of get into some rounding here. And again, remember we talked about staying away from this, the seat of that neck. I can even turn it over and get some flat areas, and I'm carving right down to that reference line I made for the head. Okay? Maybe come back here a little bit more of the half round. And you can see I'm just really kind of getting into rounding. Okay, just getting into something a little bit more smoother, a little bit more natural contour to represent that chest and that shoulder area, excuse me, on that decoy. Let's go from something that's really coarse down to this cabinet rasp. You can see these really coarse marks in there. One fun thing I'll share with you at this point is I've actually left decoys like that to carve them. And I've actually taken a blowtorch and just singed off the hair a little bit and painted them like that. I did some golden eyes one year that were really textured like that. They actually turned out pretty cool, and it's pretty fun to do. Excuse me. So now let's get on here with this. This is just a little bit finer rasp, and this is kind of knocking out some of those real coarse marks, and it allows me to kind of get in there and do a little bit finer carving. Using the half round on the back here, it's allowing me to get closer to that line. Now this balsa tends to fuzz up a little bit, about like basswood does, but that should come out with your sanding for sure. Alright, so kind of finished with the cabinet rasp. Now I'm going to go to this for something a little bit finer. I'm going to go to this round file and actually get in there and start taking some of those rasp marks out of there. This actually allows me to get real tight in here, right up to that neck, the seat of that neck. And you can see that I'm actually getting in and actually doing a lot of back and forth, a lot of smoothing, looking for high spots, and just kind of knocking them out as I see them. Okay, so again, remember the progression. We went from something coarse to something a little less coarse to something actually fairly smooth. Okay, and that got me from, you know, hogging some wood out of here down to less of a coarse cut, all the way down to this contour. And if we go to what the end result's going to look like, we'll put that head on there, and look at that. Now it's starting to look like a smooth decoy. The last step I would add on there, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, is I would actually jump over to the bow sander. So if I want to knock some of this fuzz off, I can get on there with that bow sander, and you can see now I'm starting to get into a finished, more of a finished look, where it's actually starting to sand it out and actually starting to get that decoy smooth so it can be ready to be sealed and painted. Okay, so you can Alright, so that really is the progression for the entire block. So we just covered how to get down from, basically a rough look down to smooth, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of talk you through the rest of it. So much like I did here, I went from a coarse rasp to a medium coarse rasp down to a file down to sandpaper. Now I'm going to turn that block. I'm going to do the same to the side pocket here, get that smooth. I'm going to do the same to the tail, get in there with that rasp, work out both sides of that, and just take the same process I applied to this chest shoulder area into that tail. I'm going to do the same underneath, smooth it out, take that coarse rasp, work it down, take the medium coarse, get it finer, and then ultimately down to the file, to the sander, and I'm essentially going to apply that to the back of the left side of the rump, the right side of the rump, front of the chest, the back, and before you know it, I'm going to have a smooth decoy like this, because I've applied those same steps to the entire bird. Okay. After that, I'm going to take and I drill I drill a hole through the seat of that neck with I've got a drill bit. It's about an 8-inch drill bit. It's going to go through here. That head's going to get secured with a deck screw that's going to come up through the bottom of this block. Okay, about a 4.5-inch deck screw is going to come through there. It's going to come all the way up into that head. And the reason for that is there's a lot of times when you're gunning decoys, you might crack the neck, but if you've got a screw runs all the way up into that head, it's going to keep the head on the decoy. Okay, so after I get the body done, I'm going to glue the head on, and I do use some wood putty to kind of mitigate, the smoothness of that neck. You can see I've used a little bit of wood putty around that neck. It just kind of helps that contour. You got to balance that with time, but I do use some wood putty there. And then ultimately, once you get that body smooth and you get any carving or contours you want to put on that, I'll keel the bird. Okay, I've got deck screws running through that keel, and we'll talk about keel and ballast at another time, but I'll get the keel on that bird, and basically this bird is ready to seal and be painted. So I hope that's helped you learn a little bit about how we do a body from setup all the way to carving to smooth.